Hi, Kathy Shimatero here again, and I'm here to talk about chapter 3 of my book and my study guide that goes with it. And last lesson I talked a little bit about the two sides of the cross, the love of God and the wrath of God, and why it's so important that we understand the wrath side of God as well as the love side. But I want to talk a little bit more about the wrath and justice of God and get into a little more detail. I want to read something out of my book in chapter 3, and it says, sadly, human pride has a habit of rationalizing sin. Because we are simple in our nature, we conclude that real justice is unreasonable, and that in our nature, we conclude that our sin isn't that bad. And we begin to make excuses for it, justify it, and so on. Such a lack of the fear of God shows up everywhere in our society, relegating absolutes to a thing of the past. When man does not fear God, there automatically comes a decline of justice in society, which in turn leads to corruption of the judicial system. And actually it leads to lawlessness. And we can see that happening in our nation. This is not a surprise to God. In fact, God says in Ecclesiastes 3:16, I also notice that under the sun where there is evil in the courtroom, yes, even the courts of law are corrupt. And we can see that we live in a corrupt society today. There often is no justice. Life isn't fair. So often we hear about people getting away with things that are horrible, and we just can't understand why people think the way they do or do the things that they do that really are hurtful and destructive to others. And so God's justice is really, really necessary and mandatory. And I shared this earlier about how the cross reveals to us the character and the nature of God. It actually makes everything right in this world when it is aligned to it. And that's so important. It's actually the core essence of God's moral values, of his laws, of everything that he meant for us to have and how to operate in this world. And it reveals the character of God, which is extremely important, because if we don't know his character, then when something happens that we think God should have done something differently, then we tend to assassinate his character and blame him for things instead of realizing that we're so small, so finite in our thinking. We know so little. He knows everything. He knows the beginning from the end. He understands every part of humanity and of what's in our hearts and how we think and what motivates us. He knows every single detail. And so whatever he does, if we know he's a good God, and the cross reveals to us that he is a good God and that he cares about humanity, he cares about this world, he cares about justice, he cares about all the wrongs that are in this world. And when we know that about God, then it's easy to trust him, even when we don't understand some things that may be happening or why he's not changing certain things that we see in our world that seem wrong. And so not only that, the cross is also meant to change our character, and it does change our character when we focus on it. It causes us to want to be more like him. It causes us to actually see his heart. It opens up our eyes to his heart so that we can see the compassion and the love and the mercy and the grace and all the things that he has and all the things that he wants for us, so that we can live in a world that is full of peace and joy and love for one another. That's God's heart, and that's what the cross was meant to bring to this earth. And it only can work when people embrace its work and learn more about it and study it and find out how God sent this message, the message of the cross. He lived it for us. He died for us. He did everything so that we could walk in the peace that he created us to have. And give you a little taste of what's in lesson 3, and we'll come back shortly and do lesson 4. God bless you.